The bedroom was still dark when George woke to use the bathroom, a routine midnight journey for most 78-year-olds. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, planted his feet on the cool hardwood floor, and pushed himself upright as he'd done thousands of times before. That's when it happened. His left knee locked, then buckled beneath him. The pain was so sudden, so sharp, that it stole his breath. He collapsed to the floor with a thud that echoed through the empty house. "Help," he whispered to no one. His phone sat charging on the nightstand above him, just out of reach. His children lived across town. No one would find him until morning. Using his elbows and his one good leg, George dragged himself back to bed, hauling his body onto the mattress with trembling arms. The white-hot pain in his knee had transformed into a deep, persistent throb that seemed to reach into the marrow of his bones. Morning came, and George told himself it was nothing serious. Maybe he'd slept wrong. Maybe the cold front moving through town had settled into his joints. He'd skip his morning walk, the first time in 20 years he hadn't completed his daily mile around the neighborhood. By tomorrow, surely he'd be fine. But tomorrow came, and the pain was worse. The stairs to his front porch became Mount Everest. His daughter called, and George forced cheerfulness into his voice. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Just resting today." He hung up and stared at the bottle of over-the-counter pain relievers on his nightstand. He'd already taken more than the recommended dose, with barely any relief. Inside, a fear he couldn't name was taking root. At 78, George had watched friends transition from independence to assisted living, from mobility to wheelchairs. He'd always sworn that wouldn't be him. Now, as he struggled to cross his own bedroom without wincing, he wondered if this was how it started for them too. A sudden pain. A small limitation. Then another. And another. Until one day, they couldn't live alone anymore. He thought it was arthritis. Something normal, expected at his age. But when the pain began to spread to his right knee as well, waking him from sleep with its intensity, George started to fear something far worse. If you're finding this information valuable, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. We share new, potentially life-changing content every day, and your support helps us reach more people who need these solutions. When the pain continued into a second week, George's mind traveled to dark places. Bone cancer. Rheumatoid arthritis. Perhaps even lupus. His wife had died from metastatic cancer that had started in her breast and eventually invaded her bones. He remembered her pain, how nothing seemed to touch it. Was this how his story would end too? What George didn't know, what many seniors don't realize, is that severe joint pain emerging suddenly in older adults can signal serious underlying conditions that go far beyond normal wear and tear, arthritis. Especially when that pain is bilateral, meaning it affects both sides of the body and doesn't improve with rest. The medical literature identifies several red flags that should prompt immediate medical attention. Pain that wakes you from sound sleep. This isn't normal aging. It often signals inflammation or pressure that requires investigation. Swelling that doesn't subside with elevation or over-the-counter anti-inflammatories. Persistent swelling can indicate infection or autoimmune issues. Sudden, unexplained fatigue accompanying joint pain. This combination often signals systemic problems rather than localized joint damage. Unexplained weight loss alongside joint symptoms. This pairing raises concerns about malignancy or advanced autoimmune disease. For George, the bilateral nature of his pain, now affecting both knees, was particularly troubling. Osteoarthritis typically progresses gradually and often affects joints asymmetrically. When both sides of the body develop significant pain simultaneously, the underlying cause is more likely systemic. After 2 weeks of suffering in silence, George finally admitted the severity of his condition to his daughter during her Sunday visit. She took one look at his pale, drawn face and the way he winced with each small movement, and insisted on driving him to urgent care. The doctor examined George's knees, noting the swelling and limited range of motion. Blood tests were ordered, X-rays taken. George braced himself for devastating news. "If this is happening to you," the doctor said, "don't ignore it like George did. Pain that significantly limits your daily activities isn't something to push through or hide from family. It's your body sending an urgent message that something needs attention. While George awaited his test results, his daughter, Ellen, began her own investigation. As a nurse, she knew that medications could sometimes cause unexpected side effects, especially in older adults. She sat at her father's kitchen table and methodically reviewed every pill in his medicine cabinet. "Dad, how long have you been on this statin?" she asked, holding up a bottle of cholesterol medication. "Oh, years now. At least a decade. Doctor says it keeps my numbers perfect." Ellen made a note, then held up another prescription. "And this one? For your heartburn?" "That's newer. Maybe 3 years? It works like a charm though." As Ellen continued her inventory, a pattern began to emerge. George was taking a proton pump inhibitor, PPI, for acid reflux, a statin for cholesterol management, and a daily baby aspirin for heart health. Additionally, she discovered he'd completed a course of ciprofloxacin, a fluoroquinolone antibiotic, for a urinary tract infection just 2 months before his knee pain began. What George didn't realize, what many seniors and even some healthcare providers overlook, is that these common medications can create a perfect storm for joint problems, especially in aging bodies. Statins, while effective for cholesterol management, are known to deplete the body's natural CoQ10, a crucial nutrient for cellular energy production, particularly in muscles. This depletion can cause muscle pain and weakness that mimics or exacerbates joint problems. Proton pump inhibitors, designed to reduce stomach acid, significantly impair magnesium absorption. Magnesium deficiency leads to muscle cramping, nerve pain, and reduced pain threshold, all contributing to joint discomfort. Most concerning was George's recent course of ciprofloxacin. Fluoroquinolone antibiotics carry a black box warning from the FDA about their potential to cause tendon damage and rupture, with seniors at particularly high risk. This tendon damage often manifests as sudden, severe joint pain that can emerge weeks or even months after taking the medication. "Did anyone ever mention these side effects to you, Dad?" Ellen asked. George shook his head. "The pharmacist gives me those printouts with every prescription, but who reads all that fine print?" This medication review prompted Ellen to ask her father's doctor for additional testing. While George's initial blood work showed no signs of rheumatoid arthritis or other autoimmune conditions, Ellen specifically requested a C-reactive protein, CRP, test, a marker for systemic inflammation that isn't included in standard panels. The results were revealing. George's CRP levels were moderately elevated, indicating low-grade inflammation throughout his body. This wasn't enough to diagnose a specific condition, but it confirmed that something beyond simple mechanical joint damage was at play. "Inflammation often hides in the joints," George's doctor explained, "especially when the gut barrier is compromised, something increasingly common in older adults." The connection wasn't immediately obvious to George, but Ellen immediately made the link to his diet and medication regimen. PPIs reduce stomach acid, which can alter gut bacteria and compromise the intestinal barrier. This, leaky gut, allows inflammatory compounds to enter the bloodstream and settle in joints, creating pain and swelling. Additionally, George's diet, while seemingly healthy by conventional standards, was potentially fueling the fire. Years ago, following his doctor's advice to reduce saturated fat, George had switched from butter to margarine and vegetable oils. His breakfast typically consisted of whole wheat toast with a plant-based spread, followed by eggs cooked in canola oil. "The very diet you thought was heart-healthy might be contributing to your joint pain," Ellen explained. Those processed seed oils, canola, corn, soybean, are high in omega-6 fatty acids, which can promote inflammation when consumed in excess. This revelation led to the first step in George's recovery, a dramatic dietary shift. With Ellen's guidance, he eliminated all processed seed oils, switching to extra virgin olive oil for cold applications and small amounts of grass-fed butter for cooking. She added turmeric with black pepper to his daily regimen, a potent natural anti-inflammatory combination. The dietary changes helped, but the transformation really began when George discovered what he now calls his joint hydration ritual, a simple morning routine that he credits with giving him back his independence. Before we continue to this life-changing ritual, if you're finding this information helpful, Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We share new content like this daily, and your support helps us reach more people who need these solutions. George's morning ritual began with a simple glass of water, but not just any water. Ellen had researched the importance of proper hydration for joint health, particularly the role of synovial fluid, the lubricating liquid that cushions joints and reduces friction during movement. The problem isn't just dehydration, Ellen explained to her father. It's about getting the right minerals and nutrients to the right places. George's ritual started before he even got out of bed. First, he'd drink 8 ounces of warm water with freshly squeezed lemon juice and a small pinch of high-quality sea salt. This combination provided natural electrolytes that help maintain proper fluid balance within the joints. Next, he'd add a scoop of unflavored collagen peptides to another 8 ounces of water. Collagen is the primary structural protein in cartilage, and research suggests that supplemental collagen can support joint tissue repair, especially when consumed consistently. Before placing any weight on his painful knees, George would perform a series of gentle stretches while still lying in bed. These movements activated the muscles surrounding his knees, increasing blood flow to the area without the strain of supporting his body weight. Only after completing this hydration and movement sequence would George attempt to stand and begin his day. The first morning I tried this ritual, I was skeptical, George admitted. But I was desperate enough to try anything. Within 3 days, he noticed a subtle difference. The stiffness that had made those first morning steps so excruciating began to ease. After a week, he could stand without bracing himself against the wall. By the end of the second week, he ventured outside to check his mailbox, a simple task that had been impossible during the worst of his pain. Why did this simple ritual produce such dramatic results? The science is surprisingly straightforward. Collagen supplementation provides the building blocks for cartilage repair. While our bodies produce collagen naturally, this production decreases significantly with age, by some estimates, dropping 1% per year after age 20. Supplemental collagen can help bridge this gap, supporting the body's natural repair processes. Proper hydration with electrolytes helps restore synovial fluid, the natural lubricant that cushions joints and reduces friction. This fluid becomes more viscous and less abundant with age and dehydration, but can improve with consistent, mineral-rich hydration. Gentle movement before weight-bearing activates circulation without causing damage. This increased blood flow delivers nutrients to joint tissues and removes inflammatory waste products that accumulate overnight. For George, the ritual was transformative. But the most dramatic improvement was yet to come. After 3 weeks of consistent improvement, George hit a plateau. His pain had decreased significantly, but he still experienced uncomfortable stiffness and occasional sharp twinges, particularly in the evening. It was then that Ellen made another crucial discovery in her research, the potential role of magnesium deficiency in his persistent symptoms. Magnesium is critical for muscle relaxation, nerve signaling, and maintaining the structural integrity of cartilage. It's also one of the most common nutrient deficiencies in older adults, particularly those taking multiple medications. "Dad, I think you might be severely deficient in magnesium," Ellen said. "And it's making everything worse." George's daily habits had been depleting this essential mineral for years. His morning coffee, his medication regimen, and even his decades-long preference for low-fat eating all contributed to magnesium depletion. Statins and PPIs further accelerated this loss, creating a perfect storm for magnesium deficiency. Ellen suggested adding magnesium glycinate, a highly absorbable form of the mineral with minimal digestive side effects, to his evening routine. George began taking 400 milligrams about an hour before bed. The results were remarkable. Within days, the nighttime leg cramps that had plagued him for years disappeared. His sleep improved dramatically. And most significantly, the persistent ache in his knees faded to a barely noticeable whisper. It was like someone turned down the volume on the pain, George described. Not all at once, but gradually, until I realized one morning that I'd gotten up without thinking about my knees at all. 6 weeks into his new regimen, the morning hydration ritual, the dietary changes, and the evening magnesium supplementation, George returned to his doctor for follow-up testing. His CRP levels had normalized, indicating a significant reduction in systemic inflammation. The swelling in his knees had subsided, and his range of motion had improved beyond what either he or his doctor had thought possible. "I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself," his doctor admitted. "We were discussing knee replacement as a likely necessity just weeks ago." George's story illustrates several critical insights for seniors experiencing joint pain. First, sudden, severe joint pain is never normal aging and always warrants investigation. While George's condition wasn't the bone cancer or autoimmune disease he initially feared, it was still a serious situation requiring intervention. Second, medications that seem unrelated to joint health can profoundly impact joint function, especially in combination and over time. Regular medication reviews should be a standard part of senior healthcare, with specific attention to nutrient depletions and cumulative effects. Third, inflammation originating in the gut can manifest as joint pain, making dietary choices critically important for joint health. The conventional heart-healthy recommendations to avoid saturated fat and embrace vegetable oils may actually promote joint inflammation in some individuals. Fourth, proper hydration isn't just about drinking water, it's about creating the optimal environment for nutrient delivery and waste removal within joint spaces. Timing, mineral content, and supportive nutrients like collagen can dramatically enhance the body's natural healing processes. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, nutrient deficiencies can mimic or exacerbate age-related decline, creating symptoms that seem inevitable but are actually reversible. Magnesium, in particular, plays such diverse roles in the body that its deficiency can manifest in countless ways, many mistakenly attributed to aging itself. Today, at 78, George has resumed his daily walks. He's back to tending his vegetable garden and even recently helped his grandson build a treehouse, activities that seemed impossible during those dark weeks of excruciating pain. "I didn't reverse my age," George often tells friends who ask about his remarkable recovery. "I just removed what was hurting me, replenished what was missing, and kept moving." His morning ritual remains non-negotiable. The warm lemon water with sea salt, the collagen supplement, the gentle pre-rising stretches. These simple steps, combined with his evening magnesium, have become the foundation of his continued mobility and independence. For seniors facing similar challenges, George's journey offers a powerful reminder. If you can't get out of bed, it's not weakness or inevitable decline. It's a signal. And signals can be decoded and healed at any age. George didn't accept that pain was his new normal. He didn't surrender to the limitations that seemed to appear overnight. Instead, he became curious, open to investigation, willing to try solutions outside the conventional pharmaceutical approach. His reward was the return of his active, independent life, and the knowledge that his body still held remarkable capacity for healing, even in its 8th decade. Please share your thoughts in the comments if you've experienced something like this. Your story could help someone else realize they're not alone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified when our next video goes live. We upload fresh, potentially life-saving content daily, and we'd love to have you join our community of health-conscious viewers who are taking control of their well-being.